The Auburn Tigers are dancing to the Sweet 16.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm Lindsay Crosby, filling in for Zach Blackerby, who is here from the hospital. Congratulations on the birth of your baby, Zach. Very hyped for you. Also joined by Jacob Goins, host of On the Line on ESPN 106.7. Thank you, everybody, for making this your first listen every single day. Thank you for being here to celebrate Auburn's 82-70 victory over Creighton in the NCAA Tournament. We're going to talk about just how absurd they were from three. We're going to talk about the Chad Baker-Mazara injury. But, Jacob, watching that game, how different was that first half from that second half for the Auburn Tigers?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously night and day. Creighton was shooting the lights out of it throughout the first half, made, 9 threes in the first 20 minutes. And you heard them say several times during the broadcast, Bruce Pearl and the guys were worried about, don't let them beat us for two, but they can beat us from three. And then Dylan Cardwell said it at halftime, run them off the three-point line. And that's exactly what they did in the second 20 minutes. They only make three. And we were all kind of texting, there's ain't no way they could shoot that good for another 20 minutes. They didn't. And Zach, Auburn wins because of a much better second half.
Yeah, that's the difference. That's the difference. I mean, if Creighton shoots like a normal basketball team, even above average basketball team, this game's not even close. It's not even close at the half. It's not even close throughout the second half, but they did. And props to Auburn for withstanding that incredible run. I think they made 9 threes in the first half, and it was only like a 2-point game or something like that. Hats off to Auburn for saying, hey, there's no way you can continue to do this. And they didn't. They still had their shots because Creighton's a good basketball team. But when it came to matchups around the rim, Auburn dominated. Auburn absolutely dominated. I did think Auburn's perimeter defense would be better against their guards, but hats off to what Creighton did. And they got better over the course of the game. I think Auburn's physicality wore Creighton down a little bit, which is why they were able to have such a good second half. One of the many reasons, but incredible. The Tigers still dancing. Let's go.
Yeah. To the note of how good they were first half to second half. The first half for Creighton, 9 of 14 from three, 64.3%. Just absolutely nuts. Second half, more like a standard basketball team. 3 of 13, 23%. They still finished with 44.4% from three for the game, but you have to look at the context. The first half team had a lead going into halftime because they were so awesome from three. The second half team ended up dropping the game by 12. And Zach, I seem to remember this week somebody talking about Auburn would cover. It opened at 9.5. It finished at 8.5. And I remember looking at a lot of the comments on Locked On Auburn, and people thought you were crazy for saying that Auburn would cover the 8.5, and they did.
I didn't see anybody else make that pick. I didn't see it out there. So I was called lots of
things.
Good
for you, King. Good for you.
Zach
I was
knows
told
ball.
Lots of things. And I'm like, guys, Creighton's good, but physically there's just a difference here. Now, once again, hats off to Creighton. Their perimeter game was way better than I was expecting. Still, I think they played over their skis a little bit against Louisville and a little bit over their skis in the first half, and they came back to earth in the second half. But still, we saw a different Auburn team. Can we all agree the first 10 minutes of this game, it seemed like Auburn wanted it again? I haven't seen that since the last time they played at Rupp, where they had that intensity and that desire to win. And to me, that's what kind of gives me hope of saying, okay, give us anybody, because I think we got that swag back a little bit.
Well, it seems like the response from this Auburn team, it worked from whatever Steven said, of course, in post-game comments, whatever the conversations were from Dylan and anybody in the locker room. I think they finally realized, hey, we have to play better basketball because the season's up for grabs from here on out. And Creighton was not Alabama State. And guess what? Michigan is not going to be Creighton. They're much better. We'll talk about that later. But it just seems like Auburn received the message in that they finally understood, hey, we have to be better. And they were in this game against Creighton. And while the first half wasn't great, you're right, Zach, the defensive effort was there. They weren't giving up. They were diving for loose balls. They were getting back on both sides of the floor. And Auburn wanted it more than Creighton did. And of course, Auburn's more talented than Creighton is, which is why you win a tournament game by double digits once again.
Yeah, and the guy who felt like wanted it the most, and Jacob, you were texting us just kind of repeatedly about this guy, Tahad Pettiford.
Yes.
I would argue he was probably Auburn's MVP today. 23 points, 2 for 3 from 3, 7 from 8 from the free throw line, led Auburn in attempts and makes and percentage. Also put up 6 rebounds, was tied for the team lead in assists with only 3, which feels kind of an odd total for an Auburn team to make. But Tahad Pettiford absolutely just stepped up and carried Auburn on a night where Janai Broome wasn't actually that great tonight.
No, he wasn't. And there were a few possessions where I would almost say he was a liability. Him shooting threes, I don't know who's telling him to do that. I have a hard time when they're going over game plan. Bruce Pearl and Steven and Chad and everybody saying like, hey, Janai, like shoot threes. I just have a hard time buying it. I have a hard time believing it. But man, like Tahad was incredible down the stretch. Dylan Cardwell, maybe the best defensive game of his career.
Yeah.
I mean, it was exceptional what he was doing, both covering the guy with the ball and then off ball stuff. I mean, he was exceptional. He was all over the place. So Dylan Cardwell, he did stuff offensively that showed up in the stat sheet too, which he doesn't normally do. But goodness gracious, Dylan, player of the game is Tahad, but you got to mention Dylan Cardwell.
I think it could be either one. I really do. Because, I mean, you mentioned it. Dylan did a couple of things. He had the running the floor where he missed. I forget who missed the layup. May have been Miles or Denver. Can't remember. But it was Dylan who then trailed the play, had the putback dunk, also had a couple of shots underneath. Yeah, he got to the free throw line and did make them. But his 6 points felt big. They felt in opportune times. And then Dylan Cardwell continues to blow my mind with how big he is, but the fact that he can guard 1 through 5. Can he do it for a whole possession? No, but teams continue to try and switch him on point guards and on shooting guards and think that it's a mismatch, but under 15 seconds, it's not. He has proven he can hold his own time in and time out. And sure, he'll get some help or something like that, but they can't shoot over him because he's so tall, Zach.
We have a special guest who's ready to boog. Lindsay, if you'll bring him in, that would be awesome. The Jake Crain.
Yes.
Jake texted me at halftime.
Wow.
Yes.
There's no way they can keep shooting like this. And Jake, thank goodness you were right.
Well, I mean, look, if first off, I'll tell you what, man, I want to get the effort and energy argument out of the way.
There it is.
That even in the first half, that was absolute balls to the wall defense by Auburn. I mean, guys, you go back and watch the first half. These weren't open shots. Most of them that they were making. I mean, McAndrew or whatever his name wasn't even looking at the basket. And if you've ever played organized basketball, even times where guys, we would go down to the rec center, go down to Frank Brown. Sometimes the first 5 minutes you can't miss, but eventually over time, it's like my golf shot. I may hit 2 or 3 good in a row. Then I believe I'm going to hit all of them good. And they start going right really quick. So I the effort and energy defensively. And guys like Miles Kelly, who have been heating it up offensively, hit some big shots tonight, but offensively disappeared in the second half, but didn't on defense. That was the difference with this team. They valued every possession on defense. And you know what? If you're going to shoot like that the whole game and beat us when we're playing like this, then tip a cap, just like we do in baseball, just like we do in football sometimes, and congrats, go to the Sweet 16. But the law of averages checked out, and we hit free throws down the stretch, at least some of us. Janai, though, I'm worried about Janai, man.
Worried. Well, I mean, and that's kind of what Zach was saying before you hopped on here, Jake, was Janai was not only non-existent, he was sometimes a negative factor. And it seemed like Auburn finally just quit going to him. They were just like, I mean, he's not benefiting us, so why not go somewhere else? And of course, Tahad Pettiford steps up, does what he needs to do. He is going to go down as one of the greatest guards that Auburn has ever seen. But yeah, you're just going away from Janai because whether it was what Creighton did to take him away or he's just ineffective, I kind of with you, Jake. I'm kind of worried about Janai.
And look at again, I think it speaks volumes for this Auburn team that you can win a game like that. And the finalist or one of the guys in the final two for National Player of the Year is really outside of rebounding. I thought he did a decent job on the glass.
Sure.
Was somewhat non-existent. You got to stop shooting threes. It's a wasted possession right now. It's a wasted possession. Now, shot clock's winding down. Nobody else is open. Okay, I get it. But I'll tell you this. You really find out who everyone believes the real one is when it's absolute must-have time. And who did Auburn go to? They went to two guys. It was Tahad Pettiford and Chad Baker-Mazara. Those were the two guys. And I know Chad is basically Tom Hanks from Big, and he's a little kid that's in a grown man's body. But this guy, when Auburn had to have it, driving to the basket to get fouls, right? Being a defensive guy that stuck around and played the whole game hard. But Tahad Pettiford, that floater game, I mean, it's like he waved at him. He waved at him because he knew. He waved him goodbye, and then Denver put him to sleep. And that's, when Janai's not cooking, that's all you can ask for, fellas.
Yeah, no question. Jake, thank you for hanging out with us for a second. Thoughts on Auburn versus Michigan, just real quick?
Well, I'm not speaking to David Cohn for a whole week, if that's what you're asking. He's the Michigan alum on our show. Look, at this point, it's the Sweet 16. Everybody you're going to play is good. But Michigan turns the ball over a lot. If we take care of the ball, got a rebound. But at the end of the day, I mean, look, they're dancing. They played hard on defense. Give me Auburn all day, every day.
Absolutely. Thank you, buddy, for hopping on.
Hey, enjoy the boogin'. It's a great night to boog.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, guys, want to take just a quick second. We've got another special guest coming up. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's America's #1 sports book. I told y'all, I'm like, hey, go to FanDuel. Bet $5, you get an extra $200 in bonus bets if your first bet hits. And I'm telling you, take Auburn. I'm taking the over. Y'all called me crazy. I was right. And we'll see what the line is for Auburn and Michigan. Is that up yet? I'm trying to look in real time.
I was going to look too.
I'm guessing. I'm having a hard time pulling it up. So I'm guessing it'd be Auburn like 6.5 would be my guess. And I don't know how I feel about that quite yet. But head over to FanDuel.com today. First $5 bet hits, you get $200 in bonus bets, which obviously you want for the rest of the tournament. Daryl Dappridge hanging out with us. Lindsay
Double
Crosby,
D.
Jacob Goins. Me from the hospital. I got a newborn asleep right there. That's why I'm whispering. And the Daryl Dappridge hanging out with us. Dap. Bug hard just for like 60 seconds. Go.
Look how much I love y'all and this wonderful live thing. I literally came in on two wheels, brother. And I had to be a part of it. Sweet 16s are just that. They're sweet. I'm booging. I'm on a high right now. Even having to drive all that way with parents, I'm on a high right now. I'm excited. I'm listening to the game, so I couldn't get the true feel for what was going on. Very frustrating, but I did enough of checking some things and looking up some information. And at the bottom line is, we've said the NCAA tournament is a guard-centric tournament, period. I love Broom. I love that he was, up for National Player of the Year. But when Auburn went to the Sweet 16, Harper, Brown, those guys led the way. It's look at Denver, Chad Baker-Mazara, and Pettiford. And we said, Zach, I hate to do this because we said Chaney Johnson and Tahad Pettiford were going to be difference makers in this game off the bench because of depth and fatigue. And my God, were they ever. You win a game like this and your best player gets 8 points? Are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Let them know.
That's dangerous. Watch out.
Yeah, and the effort was back. That was something that we talked about before you guys hopped on. It's just the effort, those first 10 minutes were back. Let me get y'all's live reaction to this. FanDuel has Auburn as a 9.5-point favorite against Michigan in Atlanta.
It's a little higher than I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, that seems kind of high, but I said that about Creighton, and then you cover. I think Michigan's got the extra tier that Creighton doesn't have, meaning an extra big man that Creighton didn't have. Yeah. Plus, I think you have better guards. The storylines that are going to fly around this week with Trey Donaldson,
the revenge game.
I've been a fan of. I was happy for Trey when he left, going to Michigan. He's doing great things, but him and Denver Jones are going to feed families, man. This is going to be an awesome matchup between those two. I don't know. That's a lot of points to be favored by in the NCAA tournament and in the Sweet 16 of all places.
Is it because it's in Atlanta and like Michigan's not anywhere close to that? Are they giving Auburn like
it is
almost
going
that
to be a
field
home atmosphere
bump?
for Auburn in Atlanta. I know so many Auburn fans who, even if they couldn't make it to Kentucky, they already had plans, assuming Auburn made it. They were going to go to Atlanta. They were going to use game time to get money off their tickets, but they were going to go to Atlanta because it's so close. So that's got to be a small part of it.
Yeah. For those asking, I'm okay. I'm seeing several people ask. I'm in the hospital. We had our third kid yesterday. Everybody's good. That's why I'm in the hospital. And that's why Lindsay and Jacob did an awesome job stepping in, because I don't know if a nurse is going to come in or something. I got to hop off. So everything is good. Thank y'all for asking and clarifying there. But yeah, Michigan is like 9.5 points is a lot. Like that is a ton, that's a ton of points.
Yeah.
But Daryl, I love what you just said about, you've got the best player on your team, the second best player in college basketball right now. I think most people would agree with that. And it's like, and he's playing awful, and you're still able to score 82 points against a Creighton team. It's like, okay, like it could be worse.
I agree. What I was going to say before, I think that is a little high. I agree with what Jacob said, though. I thought the Creighton line was high. Michigan has the opportunity to really, really be a force down low. I mean, Dylan Cardwell and Broom are going to have to really kind of, I would feel like, kind of like we talked about, eliminate or cancel out. I like our guards better. Love Trey Donaldson. But I'm telling you, I think there's that factor that people do not understand, and they totally underestimate when you press against your former team, and especially in the Sweet 16. If you don't think he is going to be tight as a chestnut, he is. He will be. And I'm not saying he can't play through that, and I love Trey Donaldson. He's a good player. But I like Auburn's guards. But he is going to try to prove something in this game. It's just it's human nature. And I think Denver's going to do a really good job on him. I love Auburn's guards. I think Auburn's guards are better. I still think Auburn's deeper overall in this game against Michigan, and that Big Ten style. They're very similar to Purdue, guys. Very similar to Purdue. They're very similar to Ohio State. These teams are cut. I'm not saying that they are exactly the same. They have different components, but the style and the stamp that they come from, the template, Big Ten basketball is Big Ten basketball. Auburn can use its athleticism and its depth and its guard play, but I do think 9.5 is too high. I really do. I think that's a little bit insane.
I do have to ask about the idea of Auburn has played in that arena this year. We always hear about how much harder it is to make baskets in the postseason. It's a different visual look behind the basket and things like that. Does it matter, Jacob, that Auburn played games in Atlanta in that arena when Michigan has not? Does that matter at all or no?
Sure, absolutely. On top of the crowd that's going to be in your favor. Remember, Auburn beat Ohio State there this year. It was Indiana last year that they beat by like 1 million. So Auburn is very comfortable at State Farm Arena. It's a thing where you can go over and you don't have to travel very far. You don't have any of that. Michigan's going to fly home now. Then they're going to fly to Atlanta. Auburn doesn't have to worry about all that. So yeah, absolutely. And look, I think Auburn is the better team over Michigan. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but that's a Michigan team that was down double digits with like 13 minutes to go against Texas A&M and flipped it on its head and beat A&M pretty good. And the Big Ten, correct me if I'm wrong, believe they're undefeated right now in the NCAA tournament. So they're doing something right. Auburn's got to be ready for this, but absolutely, Lindsay, I think playing in State Farm is every advantage goes to Auburn in this game whenever that date is.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Auburn wins against Michigan. I think I would have rather played Texas A&M than Michigan.
I've seen a lot of people say that.
Yeah, I don't know if I had the conversation with you, Lindsay, or with you, Daryl, or maybe both. But like I think when we talked about the worst case scenario for Auburn, in my opinion, going into it, it did involve playing Michigan. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean I think I like the matchup with Michigan more than I like the matchup with Creighton tonight. So, like, I feel pretty good about this matchup.
I want to make sure that I reiterate too. In no way am I just assuming and glossing over Michigan. This is going to be a tough basketball game. I don't expect it to be double digits. I think Auburn's better. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying that. All the analytics say they are. All the rankings, the net, the quad one wins, everything says they are. Now that doesn't matter. You throw that out when you get into the tournament. I'm not in any way trying to diss Michigan. I think they're a very good basketball team playing really good at the right time with a very good head coach in Dusty May. I'm just saying that Auburn might have figured some things out against Creighton that now they're on an ascension upwards. And at the end of the day, I think, I'm expecting a really close and a really good classic Sweet 16 basketball game. And I think Auburn respects the heck out of Michigan, and they better play really well. Let's put it that way.
Does the size of Michigan cause any issues for Auburn? They've got a 7'1" center. They've got a 7-foot center. They have a 6'10" forward. That's not having that many big guys where you can always have somebody in the game, and sometimes two. That's not really been a thing Auburn's dealt with that much this season. Is that going to be an issue? Or is this they've won too many games to be fazed by something like that?
Jacob, you take this one. You've probably watched Michigan and Big Ten basketball more than the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing with Creighton was they have two big guys. They only played one in Kalkbrenner. The other guy got in for a little bit, but he's not really a factor. Michigan plays both of their big men, and they use them all the time. Now, it can either be advantageous or it can go against them. It just depends on the team that they're playing. Auburn's biggest issue in a matchup against Michigan is can they defend without fouling? I think Auburn did a pretty good job of that, all things considered, against Creighton, talking about Dylan Cardwell, Janai Broome, and Chaney Johnson. Of course, there were some of those ticky-tack fouls and some of the fouls against the guards, but that's where Auburn's going to have to really probably play their best game in that particular area, is defending without fouling. Because how quickly could we see Dylan Cardwell head to the bench in the first half against Michigan with 2 fouls? How quickly could we see Chaney Johnson come in his relief and pick up 2 fouls because Michigan may just dump it down time and time again? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But that's what Auburn is going to have to do. They showed against Creighton tonight they can defend without fouling, and they forced Creighton to take so many tough shots, and they didn't make them in the second half, guys. And so if you can do that against Michigan, they still aren't just this crazy scoring offense. They've had games in the 50s this year, or they've had games in the 80s. They're very up and down. So if Auburn can put a bunch of pressure on them and just don't foul, I think you're going to be okay against a talented Michigan team, yes.
Let me address this front court thing too. Wolf and Golden are very good, but they are, like people are saying in the chat, they're a little bit slow-footed, a little bit cumbersome. So if Broome and Cardwell and Chaney Johnson, who are athletic as hell, I think they're going to utilize their quickness against them. You don't have to post up to score in the block. You can score facing the basket by putting it on the floor and going around a 6'10" stiff. It's interesting because Wolf was on that Yale team, I believe, last year that beat Auburn. So there's another storyline there. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
I
think the quickness of Auburn's front court is going to have to be utilized to an advantage. And then if you start doing that and they start collapsing on Broome and Cardwell, that's when I think Denver, Miles, and Chad and Pettiford, those 4, Michigan is going to have to pick their poison. I think Auburn's game plan is slow down the bigs and make Trey Donaldson beat you. That's what teams have done against Michigan when they've been successful. You try to make Trey Donaldson go for 20-plus. You take away the bigs. I don't know if Michigan's game plan is that straightforward. What do? Do you try to stop Broome and Chaney and then leave the 4 guards to eat? There's a little bit more balance there. And if one of those bigs gets in foul trouble, look, we'll trade Cardwell for Golden. We'll let them cancel each other out in fouls, right? Go get 5 fouls. Go get 5 fouls. Both of you go to the bench. You'll take that all day long. So it's going to be interesting. Again, Big Ten is 10-0 in this tournament. They're cooking right now. They're a very good basketball league. But, the matchup to me with the quickness and the guard play is where I see Auburn have this slight advantage.
To answer Daryl's assertion there, Danny Wolf played 33 minutes when Yale took on Auburn, scored 13 points. had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, fouled out of the game late in the Yale upset over Auburn, 78-76.
Payback time. Couldn't get Yale, but let's get Wolfie boy that's on Yale, Wolfman Jack, and let's go.
Yeah, and Trey Donaldson that left you after that Yale
The
loss.
storylines are just crazy.
They're everywhere. Hey, Michigan, by the way, they had their guard Roddy Gale off the bench. He went for 26 against Texas A&M tonight. Can you expect them to get that in another game against Auburn? I'm going to say no, guys. I'm going to say no. A&M very easily could have won that game, so just keep that in mind for the Wolverines.
I don't expect Broome to only have 8 points either. I mean, if that happens, that comet that's supposed to be coming soon is hitting something, because that ain't no way Broome is going single digits 2 games in a row. It ain't happening.
I think of Miles Kelly to go 1 for 8 in Atlanta,
exactly.
where he played college basketball bulk of his career.
Yeah.
And I love the Atlanta angle. I know you guys talked about it when I first jumped on, but I would not underestimate how comfortable, how well represented Auburn will be. And it's not even the fan aspect of it. It's just Auburn plays well in that arena. Excuse me.
Do we want to do let's do quick player of the games just real quick.
Sure.
Live chat, chime in as well. Then we'll kind of do final thoughts. Lindsay, you go first.
It's got to be Todd Pettiford for me. I'm stealing Jacob's thunder here, but the night when it felt like nobody could really consistently give some offense, he not only was able to put up 23 points, but the offense kind of ran through him. And he was the one kind of getting things started and actually getting the team to move on offense. And it's just something that I don't know what Auburn does if they don't have him, because nobody else was really grabbing the reins of the offense. So give me Todd Pettiford.
Yeah, Jacob.
I'll take Dylan Cardwell since Lindsay stole mine. I think Dylan played what you said it earlier, Zach, so you're going to have to pick somebody. Go ahead. You got 15 seconds. I'm going to take Dylan because of what he did offensively and defensively. His effort was unbelievable. He was the guy apparently in the locker room that let people have it and got them ready and motivated for this game, because he was not ready for his college career to come to an end. He showed up and he played like it against Creighton, and he's a big reason Auburn wins by 12.
Yeah. Also, Dylan Cardwell played 21 minutes, plus minus a 24.
Best
Led
on
the team
the entire game. Best in the entire team. Yeah, game.
I mean, yeah, his minutes were very effective. Daryl, you got somebody different? You're going to say one of these?
Yeah, I do. I have Chad Baker-Mazara, and I think
Love
especially if he would have been able to stay in longer, he might have broke the 22, 23-point plateau and tied Pettiford with points. He did it. His energy, you could tell the difference that old Chad Baker-Mazara was back. He hasn't been the same since he got tossed against Alabama. This was his homecoming. He came back and played like he's capable, and Auburn fed off that and looked different when he was playing well, like they did early in the season. And again, if he would have been able to stay in the rest of the game, I think he breaks the 20-point plateau. So I'll go with Chad Bacon-Lasagna.
Just to be fun and different, I'll say Denver Jones. I mean, I think what he did defensively.
And one was big.
Yes, it was.
Sorry to interrupt.
I heard it. Yeah.
No, you're good. Yeah. No, I think what Denver did defensively was huge. And then just from an efficiency standpoint on offense, if I can pull it up, 15 points of 5 of 8 shooting, made both of his threes, made all of his free throws, which has been something that's kind of frustrated us over the last few weeks. I'll make the case for Denver Jones just to kind of be different. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Lindsay, you got the best internet connection. You want to wrap us up?
Absolutely, I can kind of do that. This has been obviously the recap episode of Locked On Auburn. Back with you on Monday. Lindsay Crosby, Daryl Dapprich, possibly Zach Blackerby, depending on if the nurse gives him the okay or not. In the meantime, you're listening on audio. Do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.